Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you
again and again.
Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. I'm Shay Northrup.
And I'm Jonathan Charney.
And today we are going to talk to you guys about new tech that can help you read books without opening them, a wearable camera that lets you go back in time, mega robots, and The Last Guardian has been kicked down the road again. So to start you off, Jonathan's going to talk to you guys a little bit about
new tech that could read books without opening them. Now, there are plenty of books that we have from antiquity that are just too old or too fragile to actually open them and read without destroying the book themselves or whatever we're trying to get from them. So using a technology akin to X-ray, scientists can read closed books identifying letters printed on stacks of paper up to 9 sheets thick. Now, the prototype device uses terahertz radiation. That's the band of electromagnetic radiation between microwaves and infrared light. Previous research has found that terahertz rays, or T-rays, possesses a number of advantages over X-rays, ultrasound waves, and other kind of radiation that can penetrate surfaces. Now, the benefit about this, kind of like I alluded to, is say you have a really old book that was just, not taken care of, that was taken care of enough that it survived in whole, but not enough to open it. Now, this is a perfect way that having able to read it without having human hands touch it, because the oils, the chemicals on our hands being exposed to oxygen can absolutely destroy the ink. Some inks are based off of rust, for example.
Yeah.
That will just disappear. So this is a perfect way to get knowledge from antiquity that we can open. And I think this is I'm totally for this. If we can find ways to actually read it and pass on the knowledge, because some of these books are in collections and will never be opened because you can't really read them anymore.
Now, from what I understand about this too, is it actually takes a bit to actually decipher what it is you're looking at. Like, it doesn't just show you the whole page. It's kind of almost letter by letter.
Now, there's an algorithm that can correctly deduce the distance from the camera to the top 20 pages in a stack, past a depth of 9 pages. The energy of the reflected signal is so low that the difference between the frequency signatures are swapped by noise. So my assumption is, you're right, is the fact it's just scanning thing, an algorithm picks it up, and it's probably letter by letter, page by page. So this is probably an extremely slow process.
You know what else I could think that this could be used for? Espionage.
Reading somebody's mail?
Not just, that's one of the things they actually talk about, is the fact that you could use this to read somebody's mail and your mail is no longer private. But on top of that, if you needed to see what's inside somebody's notebook or journal or something, and you don't want to tamper with it.
By the sound of it, you're going to have that journal for a while.
Yeah.
So hopefully the person's gone on a trip for a couple of weeks, because it's not going to be instantaneous. Or
you've replaced it with something and they don't notice.
Now, to explain the technology a little bit more, the new system relies on how different chemicals absorb different frequencies of terahertz radiation to varying degrees. So say, for example, you have a gilded book. There's lots of gold leafing, lots of fancy colors. Each color absorbs the frequency and radiation differently, so it's able to tell the difference between, say, text and a flourish of something. A little scroll work here and there.
Interesting.
So the researchers used a terahertz camera to scan a stack of 30 cards, 300 microns thick sheets of paper. Each had a single letter about 3.3 inches, 8 millimeters wide, written on only one side of the pencil or ink. So this is cool. I mean, there's got to be museums and other people lined up, miles back just to be able to get their hands on it or use it, because I guarantee there's a bunch of libraries that have a lot of books that they just can't use. The other question I have is, can this go through, say, layers of paint? Say, for example, you have an amazing painter who painted over his works a couple of times. Will this be enough to be able to read through multiple layers of ink? Will you be able to see what's underneath it? Because I know they already do that with paintings to see what was behind it. I think there's been, not the Mona Lisa, but one of those style paintings had another drawing or something behind it. So it'd be interesting to see what you're able to do with it.
There are definitely lots of works of art, especially in like the expressionist movement and that sort of thing, that it was things that were painted over things, and it would be really interesting to see what something was originally before it was a masterpiece, or maybe if we could even like at that point see the steps that were taken, to create it.
Oh, that would be cool.
So another thing that's actually kind of awesome, so now you can go back in time. Every kid's dream come true. So you ever wish you could go back and record that custom sports car that just raced by, or that sweet kickflip your friend did?
Not really, especially the kickflip.
So this is a wearable camera that lets you go back in time, so to speak, to record fleeting moments. So what this is it is a 12 megapixel device. It's pocket sized, lightweight. You wear it around your neck, and it records into full HD,
so
1080p video.
Wait, time out. What is pocket size? Now, pocket size can be as little as a SD card to as big as a Note 7 that's not on fire.
Right. So this thing is a little bit bigger than a GoPro.
Oh, so hopefully not as thick, but that's not a bad size.
No. And with its auto edit mode, so what this thing does is it has an auto edit mode, and it continuously records, and when you tap this little button on the touch screen, it saves the footage from the previous 5 minutes.
Now, on that, does it save it to internal memory? Does it download it to your phone?
I'm glad you asked. So it records to a micro SD card. So it can accept micro SD cards up to 128 gigabytes of storage space.
That's not bad. Now, is that what it actually records the video on as it's doing, or does it use internal memory, then kick it over to storage?
I think the way it works is it records the footage probably onto an internal memory or even to this SD card, and then deletes the footage every 5 minutes.
I have to say, as much as I think it's funny, it would be interesting to actually use it to see. Well, for one, if I had the wherewithal to actually hit the bloody button, but
right. Well, so what it does too is you can also use it to constrain to do a video, like live video, using Wi-Fi. So the battery in the thing lasts up to 4 hours, and the battery with streaming live and Wi-Fi is 2 hours.
Now, can you take out the battery, or is it non-serviceable?
It seems like it is non-serviceable. I'm pretty sure it's an internal battery, which is a little annoying.
Well, on the other hand, I'm assuming this is a wearable camera, this would be a great time for, if it actually takes off, for them to make an accessory that's an external battery, like the Mophie case.
Well, you probably could do something like that, because I'm assuming that it uses a certain port that you connect to, like maybe a USB port.
So probably micro USB, or like, say, was it the Nano that uses the headphone jack?
Yeah.
That power it and all that?
Right, the iPod Nano.
Yeah.
And the Shuffle did that too.
That's it. Maybe it's the Shuffle I was thinking about.
So I'm sure if you created like a special battery pack for it, that you could like almost a dongle battery pack, you could probably essentially clip it on and it would work.
Interesting.
Now, I know there are camera systems out there that have used that kind of technology before. So apparently the battery only takes an hour and a half to recharge. And so General Streaming Systems started development on, it's called the Perfect Memory Camera in 2015. It is on Indiegogo, and it has raised more than $171,000 in 2 months. And the campaign ended August 20th, and it raised almost 6 times more than its $30,000 goal.
Now, did it give you the milliamp hours of the battery?
It did not.
See, that's what I'm curious of, because most cell phones are roughly between 1,800 and 3,800 milliamp hours. They change a little bit. So I'm curious to see on that, because one of the things that a lot of people don't know is, say if you buy one of those portable battery packs for your phone, if you buy one that says it's 4,000 milliamp hours and your phone is 3,800, that's one full charge. So I'm just curious to see if you run a portable battery on how much that would actually do.
I don't even think they're thinking about that right now, to be honest. Since this thing's just done with production,
I have a feeling they are, but it may be a little pie in the sky. It's if It's when this thing takes off, this is what I would like to do.
If it takes off. Because honestly, I think if you just use a GoPro, you're fine. But I guess if you do miss out on certain moments, I feel like this would be a good system to have in like regular cameras. So that way, if some idiot forgets to hit the record button, you can just go back and get it.
I mean, the downside to GoPro is you have to actually have the wherewithal to do it. The other thing with GoPros is the batteries last 40. It's an hour battery, and full HD on most SD cards takes up 40 minutes.
Right. So, well, they're getting better. Have you seen the new small one? It's just one button.
The Session?
Yeah.
I've seen it. I haven't used it at all. The only GoPros I have are the older models.
Yeah.
The negative side about that one is it doesn't have a viewfinder, but I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly.
Well, you can pair it up with an app.
Yeah, I was going to say you can view it via the app, which is also kind of convenient.
So this thing, if you got around to it, if you actually donated to this, if you did $119, you got the early bird price, which was $119. We'll probably see it being around $200 to about $400 roughly. And it looks like we're coming up on a break. When we get back, we'll talk to you a little bit more about the wearable camera, and we will also talk to you guys about mecha fighting robots.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch, whatever it may be.
Welcome back, and I had a few things I wanted to talk about on that wearable portable camera. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a device you actually wear around your ear. It kind of looked like one of those earpieces, those Bluetooth earpieces.
Oh yeah,
that had a camera in it.
Interesting.
So that was kind of my thought. Now, this device actually streamed everything to an app on your Android phone and recorded it on your cell phone's memory, if I remember correctly. So this is another great... I give it a lot of crap, and it's not something I would use, to be completely honest. But I do like the tech. I do like the fact you have that 5-minute rewind type of thing.
I feel like this is a great camera for consumers. I don't feel like a professional is going to pick this up and use it.
For first-time parents and stuff like that's cool for some things. I could see. I think it depends on the use case. I can see. Now, here's my thought. So imagine a short film, and say the guy's using it, and say somehow they wanted to add 5 minutes in the film. I could see somebody playing with it and able to fit it into it. As a general camera, no, but I could see as like a secondary camera doing like POV or something. I could see like a very special use case.
Yeah, but I feel like a GoPro would be better set for that, because then you also have the app to use as a monitor. Like, there's so many bigger and better things out there. You don't really need this. You know what I mean?
No, true. No, I totally agree.
Now, one of the things that Jules Winfield, the chief operating officer of General Streaming Systems, said was, you don't know when you're going to catch a surprise. A magical moment will happen, capturing a baby's first words, for instance. So the whole idea behind this thing is to just capture what you missed. I guess it's kind of cool, but I feel like it's a bit of a gimmick, and I don't think it'll catch on.
So here is kind of my tinfoil hat thing about it, is the fact that I don't see a lot of people being comfortable with you wearing a camera around your neck every time you're around people. Like, if you have kids, I think that's cool, especially when the first couple of years. I think that's fine. But my best friend, for example, is not going to want me to wear a camera around my neck because, for one, it's invasion of privacy. Two, what really is the reason that you want to record the last 5 minutes of a conversation? Am I going to use this against them in court? I mean,
I feel like people are getting more and more familiar with just cameras being everywhere, what with how easily it is to get a camera, how many people, are walking around with DSLRs, how many people are walking around with GoPros. Like, I feel like we're getting, as a society, we're getting more and more comfortable with people carrying cameras.
Well, what about the Google Glass? I mean, when that first came out, there was a lot of people, for example, that were uncomfortable with people walking into Google Glass into a restroom, for example.
Well, I think that the difference there is that you don't know when the Google Glass is recording. I think it's a little bit easier to tell when somebody's recording something on a regular camera.
But this isn't a regular camera. I thought it was something you wear around the neck.
That is true. This is something that, you can go back later. And it also apparently can be, I get what you're saying. I feel like, and then my other question is, like, how many people are going to know that this is a camera that's around your neck?
This is true. And maybe this is just, I'm thinking what this is this is an idea in search of a use case. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I'm really curious, in all honesty, how this is used. Like I said, for kids, I think this is really cool. You have a 6-month-old kid. You do that. You says something cool. Click that. I think that's cool. First-time parents, it's cool. Maybe, I don't know. It's honestly the only use case I have for it. Because how good is the camera? Say if I'm at what they have in Reno, they have those car shows, and you walk by a really cool car. How good is the camera that you're going to get a really good look at the car?
Exactly. That's something to keep in mind. I think what this is, I feel like the camera itself is kind of lame. Like, I feel like the idea itself is kind of a cool idea. But if you were to take this idea and implement it into more professional cameras, like, say, the Red or the Arri Alexa, it might be a nice little tool as a safeguard.
So this is definitely like a Gen 1 idea. This is the beginning idea to see if it has an actual use case.
I think you're correct.
Oh, I'm totally down with that. I actually hope they succeed. Now we're going to switch to something that you've only seen in TV and movies and cartoons, and like this is Gundam meets Mech Warrior, pretty much.
It's every anime kid's wet dream.
Now, American Mega Robot was built to fight a giant robot from Japan. Now, there's a video attached to this, and the American robot is typical American. It's heavy duty, looks like a Constructicon.
Right, it's like done with some like kind of rustic looking paint job and a little bit of camo, like, while the Japanese robot's really sleek and what's the word, like sleek and pretty looking.
It's very svelte. I would say, actually, I think my description is pretty accurate. It's a Gundam versus a Mech Warrior. It's the American one's cool. It has like a multi-launcher in one hand that you can launch T-shirts and other things. That has a gun that shoots paintballs in the other. And it has 2 people that controls it, one that does the steering and one that controls the weapon systems. And it didn't actually say too much about the Japanese robot, because I think this was kind of a commercial for the American one.
Right. So what this is they're doing this thing where they built it and they're going to do the fight on their YouTube channel. So it's the first ever giant mecha robot fight that we're ever going to get.
So here's my one question. If they ship this from Japan to America or vice versa, how much is this thing going to cost to ship?
I don't think they care, because this is so cool. They're going to make enough money off of YouTube downloads and views that it doesn't even matter.
You're going to need a C-130 or something like that to even remotely carry it. You're going to have a C-5 Galaxy.
a Chinook helicopter or something.
But no, I think this is cool. I mean, this is something out of sci-fi.
Right. So it's essentially a paintball war that they're going to have, right?
I'm hoping. But I want to see a paintball missile, because when the thing
the thing has a paintball missile, like that missile launcher, the side thing, it launches paintball missiles
and T-shirts.
And T-shirts.
They in the commercial for it, they said, and launches T-shirts. Like, this is something you're going to have in the new Sacramento Arena to fire T-shirts off.
That would be sick.
It's really cool, though. I'm really jazzed, because this is pretty much what happens when adults get bored and have access to like a junkyard.
If you check out the video too, like the paint launcher, that little launcher thing, is like breaking windows on cars and stuff. Like, they shot it at a car and it broke like a window. So I feel like this could be a little dangerous.
No, totally. Now, the notes I found on it, this is literally what they say. I'm going to read it verbatim just because I thought it was hilarious. If you grew up on sugary cereal Sunday morning cartoons, at some point you've probably watched a cartoon featuring giant robots, the battle to the death. The founders of Megabots, not the cartoon. Guy Gui Carvalanti and Matt.
Probably Guy.
Oh, thank you. And Matt Orherlim had that same dream, which led them to create the first mech robot built in America. I'm sorry. I had to read the copy just because every time I read it, it puts a big smile on my face. This is pretty much as happy as I get just to see them duke it out.
Right. Well, it reminds me of like a larger scale. You know those robot wars you see on TV?
Yeah.
Where they build robots and make them fight with remote controls. This is like a big version of this.
Oh no, totally. And it's like
without all the destruction.
And there's a couple of there's one big Hollywood movie that came out. I think it was the early '90s, and I don't remember the name. But pretty much, wars weren't fought with people, but with giant robots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so whole countries were decided on these two massive battles between things, and this is as close as I get to it in real life.
Well, and it reminds me of a little bit of Pacific Rim. A lot of science fiction video games and movies and stuff like that are starting to incorporate mechs fighting alongside like ground troops and stuff like that.
This is true. This is very true. So I'm excited, and I'll totally watch it. Matter of fact, if they even have like a pay-per-view, I'll totally spend $20 to watch it.
Dude, I would love if this thing was like playing, like if they did the premiere night in like a bar or something, and like go have yourself some nachos, drink yourself a couple beers with a group of friends at a bar watching mech fights.
I would totally do that. Be like, honey, I'll be back in a couple hours. Do you want to watch your robots? Something like that. Dude, this is awesome.
So it looks like we're coming up on a break. When we get back, we're going to talk about how Sony has kicked back The Last Guardian yet again. So if you're interested in new video games, stick around.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I apologize in advance, but I'm a big fan of his game. So Fumito Unda? He's the guy who made the games Ico and Shadow of Colossus. So his game, The Last Guardian, has been kicked down the road yet again. So it's supposed to be coming out in December 6th in North America and in Japan, and then December 7th in Europe. So
I predict it's going to be the next Duke Nukem Forever.
Well, we'll see. So I guess it's pushed it back. Again, we'll see if it gets pushed back even further, which I'm thinking might happen. Now, this guy has a really good track record of games. So this is The Last Guardian, yet again. It was first announced at E3 in 2007.
No wonder I've heard of this game. Okay.
Yes. So his other games, Ico, what he likes to do is he likes to take a concept that usually makes people a little angry in video games, like, for example, rescue missions and like boss fights, and turn them into games that are actually good and using mechanics and stuff that make them better.
So just by your description, I would never play his games.
They're really good, though. Like, they take the idea of these things that are usually really annoying and make them excellent. Like, it looks like this one's going to be like, you know how, like, in a lot of games you ride creatures and deal with, like, giant animals?
Yeah.
So this game's about a little boy and his, like, dragon dog. It looks like a dragon dog.
So
check out
like,
the video.
So he's like the luck dragon from the Neverending Story.
You could say that, maybe. So there's a lot of, like, giant... It looks like there's going to be, like, a lot of giant creature battles and, like, running and dodging, you know, things fighting and that sort of thing. But in Ico, it was set around a boy with horns that was outcast from his village because they thought of him as a demon, and he has to get through this maze with a little girl that he's trying to take out of the maze while monsters are attacking him. So it's an escort mission in the game, but it's done in a way where it's not a pain in the ass.
Oh, I'm going to have to try the game because by the descriptions giving me heartburn.
Yeah, so it's actually not a painful game. And Shadow of Colossus, everything you fight in that game, which, by the way, that game is beautiful. It's like people still pick it up and play it today and enjoy it.
So, question for you. On the one escort mission, does she fight or do you have to protect her the whole time?
I'm pretty sure you have to protect her, but she doesn't, like, hinder you. Like, you know how, like, in most games, like, they become a real big annoyance?
Yeah, like
She's not the case.
Like, one of the number one that's always on my mind is in the first Halo, protecting Captain Keyes from dying was always a pain.
Well, in Resident Evil 4, protecting Ashley from hordes of parasitic
zombies.
Yeah, it's just a pain. Like, I had a hard enough time dealing with them on my own.
So is this just for PlayStation 4, PC? What's it for?
It looks like it's probably just going to be for PlayStation 4, which is a shame. It's a shame because I really actually wanted to pick this one up, and I'm not going to be able to. But they released a 45-minute demo that various reviewers got to play, and most people noted that it was really good. Like, even though it's been so long, that the game itself is actually a lot of fun. The thing, though, is Philip Kolar for Polygon said that he's felt a growing sense of exhaustion towards The Last Guardian from the gaming public. A lot of people are just tired of the fact that this game hasn't come out yet, and we're all kind of wondering. It looks beautiful. It looks like there's going to be some great puzzles. It looks like there's going to be some great combat. It looks like it's going to be a great game. And this guy is notorious for releasing great games. Like, he usually takes his time. But it's been so long in development, it's hard to ignore.
Like what I said with Duke Nukem Forever, it was supposed to come out when I was in 7th grade. And so there was a ton of hype about it. And what ended up happening is they finished it. And then what happened was it was on the old engine, so they redid it. And so eventually, they when they were purchased, I don't remember who purchased 3D Realms and Apogee Games, but they released it, and it was just an awful game. Now, I'm hoping that doesn't happen this game because it sounds, at least from honestly the way you're fawning about the guy, that I'm hoping it's released, but because otherwise it's going to kill his career.
I think it's going to get released. But I'm really worried about, there's been a lot of games that have been released lately, like No Man's Sky, and like you said, Duke Nukem Forever, and a couple other things that we've all been waiting for. And
Destiny was the same way.
Yeah, Destiny is a good example that people are just going to be super disappointed when they get it because, you've been waiting so long, the anticipation has grown, and you'd think for a guy who's taken, 16 years to make a game that,
So here's the one thing that I kind of think. Part of it is the hype the publishers do. And they overpromise and underdeliver. But the other part is the gaming, is us as gamers, put so much hype on it that there's no way anybody's ever going to be able to live up to it. Like No Man's Sky was the one that I've read about, how it had so much overhype that the publisher and the guy who created it said, I never promised half this stuff. That this was,
he did.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah, there's videos of him being like, oh, yeah, there's going to be multiplayer, and oh, yeah, but you'd never meet anybody because of how big the universe is. And
now, see, my thought with that was maybe it would be the Microsoft style of doing technologies and software, like release the basic stuff and keep pushing updates, and eventually it's going to become a great game, like allegedly Destiny became.
This guy is known this guy doesn't do that kind of thing. Like, he releases complete games. Like, he's of the old school mentality where, like, you release a game and it better be perfect.
So there is a good chance that this game may not be released if he pushes it back anymore.
Well, it looks like it's coming out in December, and hopefully it will be good.
Now, who's the publisher of this?
It's Sony.
So here's my thought, because Sony being a publisher probably wouldn't be a big deal if they held off. Now, I'm thinking, say Ubisoft, for example. I don't see Ubisoft putting up with somebody saying it'll be done when it's done. I could see them saying, okay, here's your time, and then, we want our money back.
Yep.
Or Bethesda, for example. There's a lot of first-party AAA title makers, publishers, that I don't see putting up with this. Sony?
Well, Bethesda's kind of one of those groups that they take their time on things.
Yeah, but they do. But the other thing is the fact that they always deliver a great game. Now, you said this guy...
we can argue about that.
Well, okay, the last couple of games have been amazing. Skyrim, I thought was amazing. Fallout 4, I thought was amazing.
See, Fallout 4 is one of those ones, though, that, like, it really split fans. If you were more interested in, like, Fallout 3 and New Vegas and those other ones, like, if you really loved those games, a lot of people were not as happy with 4. There was a lot of hype around 4, and when it came out, I think people felt it didn't deliver in a lot of ways.
No, the other thing I think about at least those two games is Skyrim and Fallout 4, there's a lot of gameplay. I got it when it came out. No, I got it in January or February, around that time when it came out, and I just stopped playing it, and I didn't play one of the DLCs. So that's a ton of content. Now, the big question is for me, is this going to have good gameplay? If this is going to be, say, a 48-hour game, I'm thinking the guy shot himself in the foot, because who's going to wait all this time for a game that you can beat that fast? But how much replayability is in it is the big thing I want to know.
Again, this guy is of the old school mindset, you know, like this guy's of the old PlayStation 2 mindset where it's the games go on for a really long time.
See, if there's that, then I think it's totally worth the wait. I will wait a long time for a game that has either long gameplay or amazing replayability. Like for me, the game I've played over a couple of times is the new Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I think I've played through it. I'm on my second playthrough. I'm going to finish the DLC for Fallout 4, then I'm going to jump back into it.
Right.
So
I've heard mixed things about that one. How is that game?
So this is where my bias, to be honest, is going to show. I love the game. There's only one boss battle. The Human Revolution had 4 boss battles that shouldn't have been there. It didn't make any sense to me. This one has a great boss battle. There's multiple ways to defeat them. It's a great story, and the best way kind of describe it would be it's total civil rights. It's the Augs versus the non-Augs. It's a great story, and honestly, it's an old movie. It's an old trope when it comes to movies and video games. For example, X-Men did it between mutants and non-mutants. But it's a great story. I really hope that this comes out in maybe a movie, live action or animated. There's a couple of books about it. I love the universe though. The very first game was Deus Ex. The second one was Invisible Warfare. There was kind of a secondary title called Snowblind. So I've played every game that's ever come out for this.
Interesting. I've been interested about that one myself, but to go back on subject, I'm expecting good things from this game. I'm not so sure. People say it's beautiful and everything, but because of how long they've been working on it, I'm not expecting the graphics to be amazing. I've watched the video, and I'm not super duper impressed. But I expect it to be a really good story, and I expect it to be a decent game. And I'm kind of curious. I'm not willing to give up on it.
Well, I will say that people are willing to put up with crappy visuals for great gameplay. If you don't believe me, look at all these kids playing that 8-bit video game called Minecraft. People will put up with a lot. So if it's a fun game, nobody's going to care. There's going to be people like me who are probably on the ancillary side of it that just don't have anything emotionally invested to it and might add a little bit, hey, I hate the visuals, but the gameplay's fun type of thing.
Right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 32 of the Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. What we want you to do is you find us on Facebook, Twitter, and all our other social media pages. Do you have an article link? Are you a technology guy? I have something on Indiegogo or Kickstarter that you want us to talk about, just like that camera. The other thing is we want you to go to gsmcpodcast.com, find the Technology Podcast, and subscribe, and take a look at all the other myriad of great shows that we have on this network. And from Jonathan Charney
and Shay Northrop,
as always, thank you for listening.